Everyone, welcome. I'm so happy to see everyone here on a rainy, late afternoon. My students, I do have sign-in sheets, but you have to wait until the end to sign in, okay? Because you don't get credit if you sign in and leave, right? Okay, so today's talk by Bruce Wagner is co-sponsored by the Communication Arts Department and Dr. Scott Weiss, who was so enthusiastic and helpful, as he always is, and Dr. Athena Devlin and Dr. Jennifer Wingate, of the American Studies Department. And this is truly an interdisciplinary effort. The Sociology and Criminal Justice Department also sponsored it, and Dean Provost Houlihan's office as well. So I'm really happy to introduce Bruce Wagner today. And in fact, I realized today it's one of the first times in a very long time I'm not introducing somebody who's been exonerated from prison, as my students know. Bruce has never been in prison as far as I know. He doesn't need to get out of prison, or a feminist ex-communist, which seems to be the theme this semester. Anyway, Bruce is just a regular novelist, but he's actually he's not just a regular novelist. He's done a lot of very interesting things. Our students might find it very interesting. He lives in Los Angeles. He was born and raised in Los Angeles, so that's kind of interesting for our students to begin with. He's the author of Memorial, The Chrysanthemum Palace, Still Holding, I'll Let You Go, I'm Losing You, and Force Majeure. I think this might be really interesting to our students. He is also a screenwriter. He's written everything from comedy. He wrote and produced The Tracy Ullman Show to horror. He wrote A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. He's also written essays and op-ed pieces for The New Yorker, The New York Times, Artforum, and Vanity Fair, as well as essays and prefaces for books by photographers William Eggleston and Manuel Alvarez Bravo, painters Ed Rushka and Richard Prince. He also created with Oliver Stone the television miniseries Wild Palms. Today he's going to read from his latest novel, Dead Stars, which I just finished and I love. Students, you should totally read this book. I know you're really busy, but it would just be really fun and interesting to read it if you have a chance, especially because you're going to hear him read aloud from it today. I'll read you just one quote from Bret Easton Ellis on his Twitter. He said, "Dead Stars is a tragicomic Hollywood epic, obscene, scandalous, heartbreaking, best American novel I've read in a year." And okay, so that said, welcome, Bruce. We're so happy to have you here today. Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. I like what Emily said about the students not being able to sign out until the end. It's like Alcoholics Anonymous, which of course I would know nothing about. But when you come in, the court says you got to come, you got a court card, you got to wait for the whole meeting before they sign you out. I'm very happy to be here. I guess we'll talk a little bit afterwards.
Yeah, we'll have time for questions and answers.
Yeah, I kind of fall asleep at readings. It takes a different part of my brain when I'm at a bookstore or somewhere and an author is reading. It's often it doesn't, even if the material is interesting me, I have to switch off. So I won't read too long from this book. I'm just kind of impressed that Emily said it would be a fun read because if you read the New York Times, they would say that it wasn't so much fun, not because, because of its scandalous nature. But I write a lot about contemporary culture, and in that way I like to look deep into the culture of what's, what they call the zeitgeist, the spirit of where we're heading and where we are now. And so I often immerse myself in the culture. In this case, I wrote a book about 10 different people, and I had to really immerse myself in the world of the Kardashians and the world of fatal illnesses. I used Michael Douglas, the actor, as an actual character in my book, which creates some legal difficulties at times, but there's a whole almost set of rules in terms of what you can do when you use a real character. But what I'm about to read to you is, there's a couple in my book. There's a white girl who calls herself Rihanna, and she's 16 and she gets pregnant. And she wants to move out of the house with the money that she believes her mother has kept in a trust fund for her. When she learns that her mother stole that money, she becomes absolutely furious, and she runs away, and she comes back to the house later and steals a lot of very expensive cameras from her mother, who's a photographer, sells them at a pawn shop for far less than half their worth. And with that money, she decides she wants to go to a popular restaurant in West Hollywood. It's owned by one of the women that's on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. This is true. And this book is, because it's about the culture, is a lot. There's a lot of people that take drugs in the book. There's a lot of people who do not. There's a lot of terrible things that happen in the book, and a lot of, I like to think, beautiful things as well. So I'm trusting everyone is over 18, more or less. So there will be some rough language. Content is not particularly rough. It shows two people, a young couple, that are living in a fantasy world, which is what you can pick up People Magazine, or you can go on TMZ or online and see that the world is not really about Beyonce and Jay-Z at Barclays Center, even though in the dreams of these people, they're hanging with Jay-Z and Beyonce. Rihanna and her boyfriend, Ricky, who actually did audition for a film that he thinks he's going to get a film role with Michael Douglas and Lawrence Fishburne, and he does not. They took cold water. This is after they leave the restaurant. They're on his motorcycle. They took cold water, then turned left, west on Mulholland, tracing the mountain spine until they reached a lookout with benches facing the valley. Ricky lit a joint, and they smoked for a while, standing, straddling the little bike like a wooden horse and staring into the glitter twink. Ricky, I want to move out of that house. Silence, wind, all of the lights above and below. She was buzzed from the weed and the 7.5 Vikes. The MDMA was fading. We can find like a little apartment above a garage in Hollywood or even the Valley. On Craigslist, month to month. Silence and whistly wind between silences. I just keep having this feeling, Ricky, I've had it since I got pregnant, that once we get a home of our own, good shit'll start to happen for us. They got off the bike and stood on the lip of the lookout where the grass met the dirt of the hill. Teenage wasted land. A good 10 minutes standing and staring into the bejeweled void space of the world. Benched themselves. Took in cityscape and night sky. Finished the blunt. Bathed in half wind, half breeze, half warm, half cool. Riri goosebump shivered. Holy shit, I am so loaded, Ricky. This shit is so intense. I am so fucking stoned. Just sitting on the dark of the bench, wasting time. Wasted. This bench is so weird. Does it seem weird to you? Wind and silence, silence, wind, swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. What is that? Oh, cars. 3 cars. That's so weird. They're behind us, but it totally sounded like they were in front of us, in the sky. A 4th one slows, a couple looking for their own empty lookout. They clock Ree and Ricky, and then the car vanishes. Half a swoosh. Ricky, you have got to promise me one thing. You have to. Our baby is going to be beautiful, but if something's wrong with it, which there will not be, but if there is, you have to totally promise you will love it like you would a baby who was perfect. Crying now. Because what I'm saying is there is no such thing as a baby who isn't totally fucking perfect. Will you promise? Shit, yeah, of course I will. She liked the firmness of his response. In that unexpected, cool voice, she began to sing, I am beautiful, no matter what they say, trailing it off to nothingness, void space again. Then, quiet inward ruminations on both ends. Then, you know, Ricky said, maybe I'll get that movie. Oh my God, wouldn't that be insane? Her own voice startles her and she realizes how stoned she is again, but so happy. How much do you think you'd get paid? I don't know, shit, they gotta give me something, he said, humbly, ever aware not to jinx. Probably like 100,000? I am so proud of you for doing that, Ricky. I mean, you fucking suited up and showed up, which is way more than I've been doing. You're doing a lot. You're fucking having a kid. That's amazing. That's serious. I couldn't do that shit. Did I tell you that, Ricky, how proud I was of you? Oh my God, I don't even think I did. I've been a total fucking bitch. I'm a crazy hormones. But listen to me, Ricky, are you listening? I really want you to listen and hear this. It is so fucking amazing you even did that, and that your audition was with Michael Douglas and Lawrence Fishburne. Oh my God, how bitchin' and magical is that? Did I ever tell you I really only started getting into CSI really late? Like when Lawrence Fishburne came on the show? He is so totally the reason I wanted to become a crime scene investigator. He was totally in my vision. Vision? She grabbed Ricky's hand and held it to her belly for the baby kick. Whoa, said Ricky. Boy's gonna be a rugby superstar. Unless it's a girl, Ricky. Then girl will be a rugby superstar. Quiet, just wind, light, warm, lovely, his arm around her. I had this total vision of our life a few weeks ago. I mean, of the life we could have, will have. I didn't tell you about it because I thought you'd laugh. I wouldn't laugh, Ree. He kissed her cheek and caressed her hair, daubed an already flat tear on her cheekbone with one of his knuckles. She liked that. My vision was that we were in all the magazines. Is that right, he said, happy to go along. Happy she was out of bitch mode. Happy to be having kind of a chummy little bullshit romantic moment, even if he wasn't attracted to her, even if he thought he never would be again, even if just the thought of sleeping with her made him want to puke. But happy and glad, though, just now, to be talking about when they'd be ballin'. I was pushing one of these really expensive strollers, she said, with our toddler, and you were holding baby number 2 in your arms. And there were already all these articles about how fast I shed my baby weight. So we're gonna have 2? Maybe more, she smiled. Was I ripped? I mean, am I gonna be ripped? You can at least give me a 10-pack. You already have one. But yeah, in my vision, you're totally ripped, like Cameron Diaz. Hey, that ain't right. Okay, Jennifer Garner then. No, seriously, in my vision, there was a toddler and a newborn. I can't explain it, but it was like way more than a daydream. I saw in my head this magazine, right? And I wasn't even stoned. Well, maybe a little. And in the magazine, there was this shot of Tom, Katie, and Suri next to a shot of Ben and Jennifer and Violet and Serafina. And next to them was you and me, our family. What do we name our kids? It didn't say in the vision. But you were the famous one. It was really clear about that. Famous for what? Like movies and television? Oh, that's right. That's tight. I can live with that without the Cameron Diaz part. I don't want to be looking like no Cammy D. In the vision, Lawrence Fishburne took you under his wing, but you became more famous. And he was a gentleman about it. He didn't become envious or bear a grudge. In my vision, you're like as famous as Will Smith, who, by the way, we are going to be very close with. Their kids are much older, but like Jada's going to be our kid's godmom. Jada's one of their kids? No, Jada Pinkett, Will's wife. Oh yeah, the swingers and shit. The swinger shit's dope. And I've already finished forensic school. I could have worked for the city, like the city of Los Angeles, for the LAPD. The city really wanted me to, but I decided to just like be a consultant on CSI. That way I can spend more time home with the kids. And even though he's not on the show anymore, because Lawrence is our friend, he helped get me the job on CSI, right? That's right, he's family. I mean, the motherfucker made me. Always did me a solid, just like Denzel to Antoine. Hey, are we gonna have a sex tape? No. Well, we might have. No, I know. Someone hacked nude pics that I took on my cell and sent you in middle school. I was totally underage, but they're these amazing, I know the ones you're talking about. No, you don't, not these ones, because I'm totally making it up. Anyway, I'm amazing looking, and they're totally tastefully done, like Scarlett's. I totally look bitchin', and our publicist is going to say, Rihanna's not ashamed of those pictures, and I'll give interviews like Heather Morris and Krayshawn did about theirs. saying very cool and calm that I knew they would eventually come to light. But in my vision, I probably have to change my name. There can't be two famous Rihannas. Say my name, say my name. How about using Jerry Lynn? Fuck you. Hey, in your vision, do you like have us going into rehab and shit? No. Well, maybe. It's not in my vision, but maybe there's some kind of drama everybody's going to want to write about on the internet. You know, something that makes people feel closer to us. Lets them see we're human beings too. You know, like stars are just like them. And we have like 6 million followers on Twitter. Right on. Maybe you go to rehab. Hey, now come on, be fair. And our publicist says, Ricky realized he had a problem with the painkillers he was taking after recent surgery on his knee. Hey, that's in your vision, not mine. I ain't going to no rehab. All like Ricky knew he had to do something about it. You like go to Promises right near our Malibu beach house, but it's like a one-time thing. You get day passes anyway because you'll have one of those sober companions. If I went to rehab, it'd have to be like for something that wasn't drugs, like for bipolar or maybe outing myself for bulimia. And when I got out, I'd go to all the talk shows like Ellen and Anderson Cooper, and maybe even become a spokesperson for raising awareness in teens. Where'd you say we were living again? Well, we have a beach house in Malibu, like next to all our celebrity friends. But we'd have a house up here too on Mulholland. And on weekends, we'd go to the beach and barbecue with friends like Scarlett and Minka and all the Kardashians, whoever's in town, Katniss Everdeen. We'd be tight with Matthew McConaughey and his wife. Our kids are going to play with their kids. Matthew would teach our son to surf. And Laird Hamilton, he lives in Malibu with Gabrielle. We'd probably have a house in Hawaii and also a big apartment in New York, maybe in the same building as Carrie Bradshaw. I want to be friends with some rappers, girl. Are we tight with the Young Money crew? I want to be all partying with Drizzy and shit. Rihanna froze, putting her palm flat on her pant pocket. Ricky said, because we need to be down with Wheezy and Ye. He saw the blood run out of her face. What's the matter, girl? My wallet. Your purse? Is it in the bike pouch? No, I don't think, she said trance-like. I've been carrying it with me. It has all the money. Hold on, we'll find it. You had it at the restaurant, because that's how we paid, right, with the money? Rihanna didn't answer. She got up and ran to the pouch. Nothing. Shocky, she walked to where they first stood, where the hill begins to slope down. Where's your phone, she said. They crouched down as he shined the phone here and there. We need to go back. Oh my God. Oh my God. Don't lose your wig, Ree. We'll find it. We're going to find it. Come on, let's go back to the restaurant. As they climbed on the bike, he asked her why she was carrying all cash money anyway. She said because she thought Tom, their roommate, might go through her shit and steal it. Ricky, if I lost that money, I am going to fucking kill myself. No, you're not. I am. I'm serious. She's in such a rage, this character, and she's not taking care of herself, which concerns a lot of people. Her boyfriend is really very fearful. He can't wrap his head around the fact that he's going to be a father anyway. And she's not. She's depressed and in a rage, and she's running in fear of her life, so she's not paying attention to anything. And she doesn't have a good end either. That's probably the most important question you can ask, and it's a little bit mysterious, the answer, you know? And I say it's a good question because it often stops people dead in their tracks that want to write, because they think, well, I have no inspiration, you know, or I have to wait for that. And other people, you hear about writers sitting down and waiting, and I think that all of us have certain things that interest us, but you have to uncover them, you know? I mean, if you could find certain themes that you're attracted to over and over again. One of the things I seem to be interested in is children and the abuses that children sometimes undergo and what children have to overcome. There's something that happens in this book. I was watching television and I saw a little girl from Canada come on a talk show. She was about 7 years old, and they said she was the world's youngest breast cancer survivor. She'd literally had a mastectomy, and really interested me. In America, that you would be going on a talk show for that reason, that somehow the parents would allow that. Not that it's a bad thing. So I thought, what if I had a girl that was 10 or 12 years old and was a survivor of something terrible like that, but had her self-esteem had become boosted because she'd become kind of a star of all the cancer benefits. You know, she was the one that they picked up the phone and she danced and sang to all the single ladies at big cancer galas. And then what happens if she found out that there was a younger girl? And what would happen to her? Would it rock her world? You know what I mean? So in a sense, in a very high stakes way, I found a way to tap into everyone, all of our feelings of how sometimes we're eclipsed or by either that new person, that more popular person, etc. So as I was writing that, then suddenly I thought, well, it's not enough. What would happen if the doctors had made a terrible mistake and she didn't have cancer at all, but she'd undergone this terrible mutilation? So that sounds on its surface like a very sadistic thing that I might impose upon a character. But no, for me, I think it's a very human thing. It's something that might happen. So your question, what inspires? It's at the end of the day, it's the thing that you wake up with that still has your attention when your head hits the pillow at night. And then when you wake up the next morning, it really still has your attention. And if you can sustain that attention over a period of a week or two, then I think you've got something, you know. But it takes a little bit of practice before you can recognize that, you know. I think that often happens in life. Until you do something a number of times, you don't have that rudimentary skill that it takes to recognize something. It's almost like remembering your dreams at night. Some people don't remember their dreams at all. Other people, you can train yourself to kind of hold on to your dreams a little bit longer each day until one day it becomes second nature. You can remember your dreams. Not fully, and sometimes if you don't write them down, you'll completely forget about them. But I've been doing this for 30, 40 years, and I can kind of remember my dreams. So it's really just a skill you develop, and it's true with inspiration. I think all of us are inspired every day. We just don't know in what way, shape, or form, you know? Wow, Los Angeles is so different from this city, and I've been coming to New York for a long time, and only recently have I dreaded going back to Los Angeles, you know? There's a kind of, you know, any city that you go to has its beauty and has its ugliness, but for me now, Los Angeles is a place that is so vast, and the ugliness of LA is so overwhelming and can be so depressing. In New York, it's you can be depressed or lonely or a number of things, but your mood is not necessarily enhanced or made worse by your environment. This is someone from the West Coast talking. In Los Angeles, you can be in that mood and be surrounded by wide open expanses where there's no human contact. You know, New York, I mean, it's a cliche, but it's true. You know, I do a lot of walking in New York without even thinking. In LA, to walk in LA is almost like going for dialysis. I mean, it takes you half hour, 40 minutes to get someplace, and then once you get that place, you've got to walk back, and it's so in terms of the characters of LA, there is a different feeling for me. I'm a Californian through and through, so there's a different feeling being on the West Coast, kind of at the end of the world, and the Pacific for me is the Pacific Ocean is just magnificent, and Big Sur and that whole coastline. And you know, I grew up in surfing culture, you know, so that there is a real beauty to me. That's kind of my homeland in a way, but it's really lost its allure now because of the spectacle that LA has become. The kind of ground zero of celebrity obsession, and you know, everywhere you go now, there's the tour buses. I mean, they're like Greyhound stations now. They're so large, the TMZ tours, etc. Everywhere you go, there's people gawking just down residential streets. It's so repulsive to me. So I guess I write a lot about people that have that dream of making it in Los Angeles and really wind up in a bad way there, because there's so many ways you can go wrong in that city. I mean, recently there was in the news this guy that was on that show, what's the biker show? Sons of Anarchy? Yeah, Sons of Anarchy. This actor that's on it just goes insane and murders his 80-year-old landlord. I mean, it's just another LA story, and this stuff happens every week. It's the intersection of drugs and fame, and it's just not, it's not as present as it is here, that I see it in New York. You know, New York is so much richer to me than Los Angeles. Los Angeles is very superficial in many ways. It's you pick up the newspaper and the first thing people go to is the real estate section to see what low-rent celebrity is selling their $3 million home. It's really it's a sick culture. You know? No, I mean it's an expensive book. You know.
But it's long. It's like a lot of pages. So
Yeah, 2 strikes against it. Well, I actually feel that they're more almost drive-by victims than, in other words, they're very young, and to me they're emblematic of almost stillborn. They stunted by the culture. Do you know what I mean? And people might ask, well, why do I write about this stuff if it repels me? But I think that that's what writers do. It's almost a way that you purge your system. Do you know what I mean? And not so much as inoculate yourself against the cruelties of, or the superficiality or horrors of our culture, but a lot of it makes me angry. Do you know what I mean? That we've reached this point in time where there's such pornography in all ways, shapes, and forms. The culture for me, I mean, the internet is magnificent, but the internet is also makes the absolute worst of human nature available as quickly as it does anything else. But somehow we're kind of hardwired to chase down the worst. That's the part that glitters for us, you know. So that's, as a writer or as an artist, you have to transform. You can't, for me, it would make no sense to just document the culture as if it were an enormous garbage heap, you know. I don't have any interest in that. You've got to change all of the horror and the garbage into something that's gold in a way, that has some spiritual component, because otherwise you're just, I'm writing a nonfiction book, a documentary, you know. So story is the important thing. And I'll just, one of the last things I'll say is the scariest thing for a writer is this idea of the story dying, you know, the death of story. Because now there's too many stories. There's just too much. So that's what I was saying earlier. You have to sort through, you have to find what stories interest you, because the stories that interest you are the ones that can interest other people. The problem is that when there's so many stories, it's like an overdose. It's like, that's what I mean by pornography. Pornography to me is an excess or an overdose of anything that cuts your feelings off and you go on autopilot. Or, man, I was reading an article in the paper today about how they're giving kids Adderall. They're giving kids stimulants now just because it makes them feel a little bit better. I mean, it's the most bizarre thing I've ever heard in my life. It's like, first they started giving it to schools that were doing poorly because their grades went up. And they justified that by saying, oh, they'll get more funding by the state. But then the parents said, well, there's a smile on my daughter's face now. They're literally giving her amphetamine. So how in a world like that do you find story anymore? Because that's pornographic to me, and that means you're killing story. You're killing the possibility of story. So that's why I wrote this book, and it was very difficult to live at the worst sort of, most frenzied level of our culture for a year, however long I did. It was almost like scarred me in a way. I don't think so. I think people are much more liable to aspire to being characters in Breaking Bad than they are, in this. You know what I mean? It's like if you want to be Kylie or Kendall Jenner, you know what I mean? More power to you, But I think that the heroes kind of remain the same for kids. And I'm not judging, when you're of a younger age, sometimes the things that you covet feel more dangerous to older people than they actually are, But for me, I had to live in the world, in what we watch on television, what we digest every day, essentially, what books we read, and people will say some people say it's a distortion, of our world. Others say it was accurate. To each his own. So no, I don't think anyone's going to aspire to it,
Okay, well, thank you.
Well, I've in this particular book, let me see. It's certainly not. These people are not wealthy. The Ricky and I think they live closer to Riverside. But in terms of ethnicity, Ricky is black. I take a kind of a snapshot of LA. There's no one from Long Beach or Orange County that I can think of. But in my books, I generally I go all over. I'll have, Memorial, Little India, and I do go all over. I'm one of the things I'm kind of obsessed with, because I grew up in Beverly Hills, kind of in the poor section of Beverly Hills. I'm obsessed with people that are aspiring towards wealth or aspiring towards fame, and people that fail terribly at that. So I have often in my books, there's a tremendous gap between. In this book, there's a little boy whose father's a billionaire, and his mother left him years ago, and he spends his days looking for her on Google, just Google searching, where is she, Google map searching his mother. And they live in Bel Air on 100 acres, which is unheard of. So I try to represent Los Angeles, but not in a way that's statistically correct, if that answers your question. So.
Okay, well, thank you so much. That was so
Thank you so much. The papers will now be signed. I'll actually sign.